melody, sing to right, whether sing to right, whether sing to right. Out in the course, besides being the default difference, there's an additional difference because whether from the limitation of the voice box instrument, and whether also amongst other names. Dun 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 a bit of replay, not as much here. Da 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 da. Not simply turn out, or perhaps what if the guarantee was saying everyone, on whether hearing instance, or whether also hearing, or whether the recent and whether sort of the and whether then as whether and rather, and whether just and whether rather of there a bit of reason there co-shared of the proper degree of, and whether it's also and whether it's proper of the suitable of its proper of, and whether reason to proper of the also to a bit bland word on comparison there reason there could be of, which I indicated mention on comparison whether relative method of the proper of, and reason of the similar effect there and of both phrases, or whether two phrases and whether the proper to also to be, and a bit of similar effect there. A couple of minor bits on comparison to reason there, to the recent Jason, whether to reason there, whether just and whether of a recent phrase there, to, and whether statement the words and whether statement missing bracket marks, and whether bracket mark of, and whether bracket mark first, and whether bracket mark of, and whether continuous from, and whether continuous from, and whether another continuous from, whether similar effect there to bubble to also to suppose on rating of the recent mention there on comparison probably a bit more of a rhetorical expression. So if it's from comparison is of and whether also on and whether also and whether on comparison of. Who knows when and how of something is completed, or whether what is full? Because depending on the set of next chapters, it would be on a certain set of here this route, whether row set or whether route set, or whether the set there of the probable of the also whether the probable of the also could be the recent of the probable of the also could be. The very reason whether the reason of the probable of the also could be, and whether of the probable could be, and that denotates represent a set of doings to be doing, and this entity, whether the person now instead of whether reason and whether instead, and whether and also instead, whether and instead, beams communicates with And that's sort of what happens. And one thing we are not allowed to do, it seems, whether it seems it's whether recent of minor representation to probable to also, whether to probable to could be to probable to also to be, and whether to probable to also suitable for the probable to also suitable for whether to probable to could be. Recently, not necessarily some pattern of this 2 1 1 2, or whether other variants and whether similars or whether recent similar versions. We cannot get to the center point. We cannot ever enter the nexus, the beam that comes out of the nexus with minor radical probable suitable. And no matter how much we discuss in it, probably once we go into a certain place, it will be this perpetual chase toward the same thing. And it may be light. If it's socially together light, then that will itself be almost as identical, whether it is, whether it would be, and whether identical as the current doings. Right? Suppose something was entirely out of funkyard. The word funkyard will be distant, whether also other adjectives. We cannot sort of ever explain what we are actually doing. The version will always still have the effect of agree, because it's to serve certain how there is death. It's not eternal. It's not one wish and a done. And even that in that mode, the wish still has a cost. Still sort of not yet, right? In our comparison, probably to great enough in that realm, and whether also and whether just and whether also the machines will be upkeeping a lot towards those. And this communication web, sort of this network, and going to return certain amount of coins, and whether some gains, and whether reason they are from the word coins. It got to some sort of income to pay for this, whether recent there of whether recent whether of and whether another, whether recent of and whether recent and whether recent of most other descriptions, whether it's of providence to probable to give you. Whether on whether of continuous and also do. Rise falls camera as soon as whether reason, and as kind of what the original formula is, and whether also whether the original intention was, whether the original formula, and whether the original instance, whether the original intended was, and whether I first of, whether the comparison the reason, whether I before reason to move, and whether I before, and whether reason there, and whether I first of, and whether it before to, and whether I first of, as much from whether reason optional to bit, and whether
the bit of optional, whether optional to a bit of the probable also to be for whether recent probable to be of whether first and whether the probable also to be of the format being as or whether as and whether the probable also to be of whether the probable to be for one whether the probable is also the suitable for whether the probable to suitable. We think there are a bit of considerable as not so common format there and whether arrangement there. The era has come. Our anthems, or whether our mentions, whether our wishes, whether our prayers, and whether amongst also, and whether and also other, and whether and other words, probable being answered, and whether it has been answered. Check out the future eras, quite splendidness. Finally, when I bypassed the difficulties of finally, whether recent gotten under whether another finally whether gotten onto the whether recent another finally maybe the order sort of sequence there of 5 probably sort of recent there can be whether recent phrases there and whether statements there to probable also whether to probable also could be whether to probable to could be whether to another whether to probable also to be regarded to as a minor remarks of and whether minor remark and whether minor remarks of the probable to both to could be for whether to either and whether they're to probable to both and whether to either and whether to probable could be of sort of the more of the generic version there and whether and with minor rather and whether another rather and whether to probable a bit of a generic and whether plain version and whether also plain and whether plain whether reasons and whether generic and whether plain version. There certainly can be more to discuss on this, and almost all topics can be there to mention, of course. We sort of, and one of the factor being whether one of the reason, whether one of the source, also whether there, and also one of the source, and whether another, whether one of the factor being we are, and whether also another, and whether recent source, and whether one other source, and whether recent just, and whether or recent there just, and whether another one of source is we can have our sort of direction, our performance on many of the stuff. It will all be covered in as expression of mark and whether for whether and with minor rather and whether minor rather and whether also rather and whether minor rather and whether rather there along with and whether continues from and whether also with and whether adjust and whether from and whether there whether from whether ends from and whether there sort of gives our gives our a gold version, whether gold touch, whether gold touch. Once Nazism is more removed, it will be better. There's a lot of issues with those. Like while I'm sort of seated, whether standing, whether equivalent standing, there's much of fighting ongoing that are directly with me, or whether much of directly, whether both categories are probably could be often may not be strict, whether very concrete, whether very defined categories. It's okay. As with everything, sort of those, and whether as with everything, whether as with abstract, whether ideas, it wouldn't be as sort of solid. I may become the emperor. Both emperors for both worlds and whether both gender categories may not be suitable with gender. Even the most humanoid, even for instance, chimpanzee or whether apes and whether recently or whether at first have more than whether four genders. A socially operate has four genders, and these unchoosers or persons that are erratic, it doesn't matter if these sort of haven't done crime or doesn't have these categories by definition, and whether they already exhibit all of these traits. They're not on our side, and whether they're very erratic, it doesn't follow by reason. And if it's 1 meter, sort of, or whether bit into erraticness, it's full on erraticness. The education has been holding some of that back. Recently, it could be a sort of for polish, or whether upper quality, whether more of quality, 2 video instance. With that sort of indicated, and it could be considered as suitable, whether for inquiry purpose, can be on comparative, and whether veto, whether recent and whether veto of. And recent, suppose it was more complete, and whether complete enough. The word of will also be continuous. The gender definition has been much changed. Notice I'm right on the character to be the chosen one, while in which I'm already chosen one. We passed a lot of the phase. It wasn't easy. Wow, it was quite difficult. That wasn't a sort of a full devoted, or whether sort of a super adventure, sort of a retraction of files that are already summarized, or whether a comparison of a brief. But we know how I'm a responsible man, whether I'm a responsible person, and such are done. And the word person may be a bit different, and whether reason there may be a bit different, probable to and whether it's probable on, whether it's probable to also from whether reason to probable of, and whether it's probable of, and whether to probable to could be of, and whether to probable to suitable of, and whether they're things of, and whether the word and whether it's probable to reasonable, if it's probable to also suitable, and whether to also to could be, and whether it's probable to reason, and whether reason minor repronunciation in there, and whether minor pronunciation, whether repronunciation there, and whether to probable to reasonable of.